Hey guys, I'm Alex Swartz. I'm with the Caddis Fly Shop here for, I don't know, maybe just 4 to 5 months. Kind of bringing some new things or new old things back to the table. I wanted to do some more streamer videos and get people excited about getting fish to eat something, get a full meal, as I like to say. I like fishing a lot for predator fish, and that could just be anything that requires throwing like this kind of pattern. This can kind of range from pike, stripers. I bet you could even convince some salmon or even other saltwater fish as you get down. Use this in Baja too, hopefully someday. But yeah, I basically want to kind of get more of this, more of these kind of bigger flies, and kind of wanted to educate people about this new material we got in the shop here, and kind of showing different applications of it and how to use it and why. So here doing a video with repping some new material. It's called naiad hair, kind of like Icelandic sheep hair, but it has a little more, volume to it. It's not quite as dainty. We're kind of doing a hollow fly kind of pattern here, using the Trout Predator 2/0 long. You really need a pretty long shank for this hook to fit all this material. This thing will get about 6 inches. So I'm going to start with GSP 100 denier Vivus. Best stuff ever. So as I did there, is just coated the shank with thread. So when we go and apply bucktail and some of this other material, that's a really important step, because then it can, when I spin it in the round, it'll go around much smoother. And all you need is 2 strands of this 1/100th micro Flashaboo. This stuff really shows up in the water, man. That's the first thing I'm gonna do. And it kind of is a underlying flash tone. And it kind of sets the length for the rest of the fly. So I think it's a pretty nice thing to add in. So I'll do that. And it kind of gets ratty in the back. That's okay. First things first, I'll get bucktail. I'll get some of this longer stuff here towards the base of it. So it kind of keeps the fly balanced in the water. I do about 3 inches, measure about to my hand. I'll flick the back of the bucktail. There's always a bunch of crud in there. Sometimes it's okay to have in there though, I'm not too picky. That's too much. Yeah, and this thing's a pretty sparse fly. The naiad hair kind of helps fill in whenever we add that. What I'm going to do is just kind of making an armature here. So I don't reverse tie this first one. I just tie it like that. So I kind of bring it down and I'll massage it around the hook, so then it gets a good distance around it. And then I'll tie those butt ends down. You don't need to crank too hard, but we're trying to kind of get this thing this is really a lot like, or this pretty much is Bob Popovic's hollow fly, with just a little pizzazz. And this is that naiad hair right here. I'm gonna grab a very, I don't know, maybe even like a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch diameter of this stuff. And what I'll do is I'll reverse tie the rest of these steps in. So I'll kind of measure it to how I want it. So I'm gonna trim the butt ends like this. And then I'll tie or marry that up next to where my thread wraps are, near the tail. And this just gives that illusion of having it be really bulky, but we want this thing to be light. You want to be able to throw it, not like have it be a sock. And see how I just kind of bring my fingers back like that. Always check around, because if I need to add a little more, that's okay. Really neat stuff too. With this naiad hair, you can kind of, with this back part, get a comb or like a dog hair brush and use it for other applications like dubs. You could make a big head. Just, there's options are endless. I won't get into them all now. Okay. Reverse tie that in. And then I'll just grab that material just once. Okay, then I'll repeat that same process here about 4 times. Just kind of continue to do it up the shank. The same kind of thing. Another key to this fly to get it to look right is as I apply this bucktail and naiad hair, it's gonna go shorter and shorter. So like I'll measure it to about here. So that's where I'm gonna trim my butt. So I'll take my middle and thumb and pinch there. When you pinch any kind of material, feathers, any of that, basically what it does is you get an easier grip on it and you can hold things flatter. I was taught by a famous salmon fly tyer that trick, and I think it's very useful for a lot of things. So I'll do 2 wraps, and I kind of roll it like this, and then with that GSP I'll crank on it. Then you get it all the way in the round. But anyway, I'll repeat the same process there. And you know, I really make it so when it gets wet it doesn't have to hollow down too much. Okay, here we go. Bring it back, have a couple hairs pop out, then I'll do the naiad over. It kind of fills in these gaps. And it's always handy to have like a little just regular comb on the table. Kind of get through some of this stuff, or I'll just use the tip of my whip finisher and make sure some of that stuff doesn't get caught up in there too bad. Okay. Do that same thing. And like what I'll do to kind of get space too, because it seems like it kind of give it that illusion of bulk, I'm going to use the butt ends kind of as a skeletal structure, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if I want to kind of fill in some of this gap here, so once I measure, that's where I'm going to do that bucktail. I'll trim my butts again like I said, and then in this empty space here, that's where I'm going to set this. So like I give it like a 1/4 of an inch or so, but it also just gives it so it it's kind of why the idea of the hollow fly too is it gives it like more spacing, so I can kind of just makes this thing throwable. If you start getting too many materials on here, it's like throwing a sock. Then as I kind of go up the head, I'll start letting it get a little squirt, like not squirrelier, but you know, starts to open up more. And you can put as much flash as you want. This color is just this white and black, just a simple contrast. Any color, have it match any bait fish, kind of match your hatch with this stuff. Solid black would work great too. Alright, and these next 2 applications are going to be this kind of like head stage, but we continue to do the same thing. But I'm going to kind of pause here and then add a little bit of this angel hair, ice blue. And I like pretty sparsely flashed fly, but this stuff goes a long way. So I'll kind of spread it out, get some of the longer fibers. And I'll kind of, you know, you can kind of, I don't know how easy it is to see on camera, but kind of bring that down here. Pretty much tie it over the top of it. But it's kind of like that same thing I was doing when I was rolling the bucktail or the naiad hair. Just gives it a little bit of that like side shimmer in the water. So that'll work there. I'll do another application of bucktail here. This one's my thickest and shortest application as well. I did want to mention that, because I've been increasingly getting shorter as I go up the shank here. And then my bucktail I do is thicker, but don't let that deceive you. You should be able to get about 10 flies out of 1 bucktail, which before it was about 5 or 6. So that's why it, you know, the naiad hair kind of helps you conserve that. Not that we're trying to, but okay. Measure that up. Wrap away. There we go. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I do like using this UV white bucktail here. Fish really pick up on that UV spectrum. If I were to hit this with the light, you'd kind of see how it'd light up. And a regular white would work too. They both kind of have the same appearance. So like right here, you get, I'm showing you get this kind of like funnel shape, kind of more of like I kind of try to keep it 45 degrees, but it's not in a perfect world. Then I'll do this last application of the white naiad. And I'll make this one pretty thick and short. But I mean, this stuff's so long, the options are endless. I know people that tie a 20-inch fly for muskie, imitating a whitefish. So I mean, you kind of, starting to get away from this articulated stuff just because I don't trust the jointing. So I kind of started to make more flies that were single hook that you get really, really nice motion out of. I'm going to double up the naiad hair here, because I really want that to have a good bulky profile. Okay, so that's going to be better. So I'll measure it to about where the head's at, then I'll reverse tie. And the only thing we'll do from here is I'm going to add a little bit of black over the top to give it a two-tone appearance, and kind of gives it contrast so it shows up better in the water. So we'll kind of get this out. And this naiad hair is really cool, and I really, really suggest everybody try it. It's really works well, extremely well with bucktail. It's very impressive stuff, and I haven't, to my knowledge, I don't think it's been around too long, or commercially tied. So you could even call that good right there, just solid white if you need it. But I'm just going to add a little bit of black over the top before I add my eyes on. Kind of, and there'll be some little like clumpies in there, just kind of like ratty hair. It doesn't need to be too crazy. This kind of black and white I'm doing here in Oregon, we have bull trout, and they like to eat kokanee, so that's kind of this color combo I was wanting to go for here. Same thing with that pinch thing I was telling you with the middle finger and thumb. That's a really, really useful thing, and you'll see me do it in pretty much every fly I tie. Do that, tie it, really, really secure that down. Okay, then I'll do the Pro Sport Fisher 10mm tab eyes. And I always trim these down a little bit, just because it kind of, if you just put that straight on there, that eye goes in the middle of the fish, and that's kind of wonky looking. So I'll kind of take like right here and cut that tab in half and then tie that in, and that's plenty. And it kind of gives you a little bit of like reference to kind of make a bigger head here. But what I'll do is I'll take these eyes when they're stuck together to make sure they're the same size. I'll stick them on the non-sticky sides like that, bring them together, and then trim them so then you're keeps it really accurate. I'll do this outside one first. But yeah, rotary vise is extremely, extremely helpful. I'm just kind of getting it set in there before I crank down too hard. The other cool thing with these eyes is this flash kind of gets down by where the thread is, or the flashy side of this eye, sorry. And so now that those are on, I'm going to kind of adjust, make sure they look right. And I always look at the fly kind of head on like this as well.
I thought it was black, I'm sorry.
And
alright. I'm ready to security here. Cool. Looks like we're upgrading you guys. Sorry about that, take yours.
And that's pretty much the fly right there. What I'll do is tie this off and then apply some of this with a toothpick. I'll go around the eyes because there's nothing really I did. I just tied them in and did nothing to secure them on the other side. So this liquid fusion stuff's great. Super, super durable, and I use it very, I do not use it conservatively. I put that stuff on there quite a bit, and I'll, due to the sake of time, I'll tie that off. Do a couple whip finishes here. That's the fly. Yeah, with this liquid fusion stuff here, I will just kind of set my stage and I tamp it in there so it gets down into the material. And I'll go down just slightly past the eye. I'll fold everything back and go in a circle. So that's another good thing, is bucktail is really hard to put glue on. This naiad hair kind of with it really helps it give this something to stick onto. And you can do all kinds of things with this, make a bigger, fatter head if you really want it to juke and jive. After I kind of put it on and like I said, I'm not being sparing here. I will spread it out with a toothpick, but the more important thing though is to, like, I'll use the actual tip of the bottle itself to apply this. It's just the easiest thing I've found. Really get it into that material. Last thing, I'll put a big glob of glue up by the eye of the hook, and I'll take a toothpick and spread over it. Now that I got that stuff kind of set in, this just makes this thing almost bomb-proof. The reason I like this over UV resin is that it kind of has more of a supple, pliant, like, I don't even want to say like gummy, because it's not quite that way, but it's not as rigid. And I really like the weight of it. I think sometimes that UV glue gets heavy and it doesn't help with the movement as much. I think it restricts it. But this is really, for this here, is more for the eyes than anything. So yeah, when that dries up, we'll go fish it.